All right. So for exam one, I changed it to be unlimited attempts. Again, you can go through and take that as many times as you want, and it is open until the end of the semester. Now, the thing about taking, all of the exams are going to be open until the end of the semester because you can take them more than once. So you may want to take your second or third, your second attempt or your third attempt toward the end of the semester as you review. So regardless, your first attempt or any attempts that you go over the 60 minutes or that you do pass the due date that's in there, it may not show you your answers. So because I don't know why it's some thing in Blackboard. I can't control it. And it also, if you go over the time limit or you take it after the due date, it won't populate your grade book right away either. So I have to go in and kind of manually click a couple, I don't click with two hands, click a couple buttons, and then, and then it'll populate your score. And I don't know why it's that way, but it's that way. Now, if you're before the due date, you're under the 60 minutes, it should show you all of your answers after you click submit. It may even show you those after the due date. I'm not sure. I hear differing things from students, so it could depend on what type of device you're using to take the exam too. I don't know. But I do know if you go over the time limit or past the due date, it won't populate your grade book right away. I have to go in and do that. So keep that in mind. So anyway, extra credit exam 1B. So what I did, basically, I bungled a little bit I put my my human biology exam batch got kind of blended with some of the questions I use for A&P. So that's why you saw some maybe questions that seemed a little bit off. So again, thank you for making note of that. I mean, if nobody would have said anything, I would have assumed that everything was fine because, like I say, the scores were still pretty good overall. So I didn't have much of a reason to be alarmed, because that's what would trigger something typically from me is that, whoa, these scores are consistently low. I think I must have bungled, which occasionally I do, I admit. Well, you know that for a fact. You've seen it in action now. But anyway, so I wanted to remedy that. And so unlimited attempts, take it as many times as you want. There are some valuable questions in there. Obviously, you saw several questions, and some of you had different, you all had different questions, or different organization or grouping. So some of you may have had a perfect exam that had, relevant items from week one. Some of you may have had a bunch of questions about evolution and genetics and yeah. So anyway, sorry about that. So I put the real one, the one I wanted you to take, that's strictly A&P related, in as an extra credit exam. There are around 60 questions in there. They're worth a half a point of extra credit each. So, and it does close, not this Sunday, but the following Sunday. So you basically have 10 days or so to do it. If you want to do it, you don't have to. I would recommend it. So anyway, the reason it's going to close is it's showing up now as a normally or regularly graded item. So when you take it, it'll populate as like part of your regular grade. So come the 20th, that at midnight it'll close. You won't be able to see it. You won't be able to access it anymore. So please, if you're going to do it, get in there and do it. You have unlimited attempts too. So do it sometime between now and the 20th, because it will close. And then what I'm going to do is write down Actually, what I'm going to do is create an extra credit column that, from my perspective, that'll be right next to the exam. And so what I'll do is just move your numbers, your points that you got in the exam, I'll move them over into a new extra credit column. And then I'm going to delete the exam out of there. So then it'll remove those points towards your total points, but it'll give you, the extra credit column gives you the positive 20, 30, however many points you get. You can max out at like 31 or so. I hope that makes sense. I know it's a little bit weird. This has never happened before, by the way. So you guys, like I say, sometimes, things happen. It's in the folder. Yeah, I'm going to move it. I'll put a link under the exams tab. Somebody asked where it's located. It's with the other exam under weekly units. So I'll make a link right now, a hyperlink, and put it under the exams tab too. I meant to do that, but I didn't. I think I can do that really quickly here. Course link. And then I'm going to browse and find that item. It should be located right under our weekly units, week 1, extra credit exam, and submit. So it should be under the exams tab now. I'm going to sneak over real quick to the other class and do the same thing in 37, which is my night class. So let me do that as well for those guys. So anyhow, do any of you have questions about the extra credit exam, kind of how that works? No timer, unlimited attempts. Just get in there and take care of biz between now and the 20th. Again, they're half a point apiece, so it's 30 points of extra credit possibly for that. Okay. So anyway, hopefully that'll remedy things. And regardless of the points, which you'll get from doing it, you'll note the questions are very good. They're when you're taking it and going through, you'll be like, oh yeah, I see why this was supposed to be in there. So again, I do apologize for that, and thank you for seeing that. I wouldn't say I'm not a perfectionist by any means, but I do like to keep things fairly well organized and on the ball. So I feel kind of embarrassed a little bit. Oh my gosh, come on. And Blackboard is kind of bungling. So I'm trying to go back to our class. All right, so that should be under the exams tab. All right. Okay, a couple other things. Let's get back into our classroom. Okay, so Padlet week 1. So grading wise, what I did over the last couple of days. There are a couple of anonymouses in here, I don't know, anonymous individuals. I think there were at least 3 that I have marked. So if you do not have a score in your Padlet grade in the grade book, so go to your grade book. If there's no score for the Padlet and you're positive that you entered in, you put a comment in here, please go back in, find your name, find the anonymous, find whatever, and then email me and let me know. Because like I say, there are at least 3 of them in here that are anonymous. Okay, so you can check your grade book, check that out. All right, the other things I graded your lab assignment first. That one, like I say, for the most part, they were very good. A couple of the items I noticed were proximal, distal, with the elbow and the wrist. So I think it was about the 3rd question in. So that was, I don't know, maybe about a quarter or so of the ones I looked at were backwards. So If it says the wrist is what to the elbow, the wrist is distal to the elbow. If it says the elbow is what to the wrist, the elbow is proximal to the wrist. So that was one of the main ones I noticed. And then let's see, toward the end, well, the ones we talked about in the middle, those were fine. Numbers 15 and then 19 through 21. That little batch, you guys all did great. Like I say, some of you had some differing items, which is good. So it asks like structure. Well, what structure is it talking about? A few of you emailed asking what I mean for that. It could be an organ, it could be a tissue, it could be a gland, it could be any structure, anything of substance in the body. It could be a macro or micro structure. For now, I'm looking more for the macro. The other thing that so I'm going to kind of combine the two, because you notice the portfolio assignment and the visible body scavenger hunt were very similar. So that was the kind of the idea. Couple of items really in the portfolios were tremendous, and I appreciate those of you. Some of you had turned it in before I had kind of clarified what I wanted for that part 4. And those of you who did what you did, that's fine. Just numbered 1 through 10 is what I need to do to get through A&P and how I'm going to use these terms. Some of you put some other details about why you're taking this class, and the common theme was definitely time management as one of your hurdles. So I get that. I'm, like I say, I'm old, so my time management abilities really kicked in, certainly after I was a college student. So they don't teach you much time management in college. Now, Gateway is a little different. So my point is Gateway and the tutoring center, learning success center, student center, disability support services, all of the things we provide, they can help you with time management. So if you do need, I know, it's easy for me to say, just reach out, get help for time management skills. And some of you are like, I'll just figure it out myself. And that's fine too. But just know that if time management is an issue, first of all, you're not alone. Second of all, email me or talk to me, ask me for some advice. I can give you some clues to time management. Really, it just, what your 24-hour day holds. So that if you're playing Merge Dragons or whatever, some app on the phone, home suite or Gardenscapes or whatever, or doing your fantasy football, now it's football season, those are time management things that I can't really help you with. Only you can help yourself with. But I'm also going to tell you, take time for yourself too, getting good rest, having good boundaries, being able to tell folks that maybe you're not as high of a priority right now as my schoolwork or my studies or whatever. Just be honest with those around you. Tell them what your needs are. Tell them what's going on. That's your best form of time management is if you have a work schedule, you already know what it is. If you're dilly-dallying with playing apps and leaving things to the last second and prioritizing games over other things, well, I'm not saying throw the games out. I'm just saying kind of make time for both. Anyway, that's the common theme that I saw regarding a lot of your maybe nervousness or anxiety about the course. A couple others of you said, the face-to-face issue. I know, I get that. The hands-on stuff, I totally get that. So again, if you need that face-to-face hands-on stuff, you can go to any of the campuses except for Burlington, but I know Elkhorn and Racine and Kenosha. You can go through the tutoring center. It doesn't students who are having difficulties academically or understanding aren't the only students who reach out for tutors. All students can reach out, like especially now. If you want access to models or you want to see items, I can make arrangements at Elkhorn with the tutoring office to have, and I know they have some models, but I can get some other stuff in there. I want to make this so you're able to go to Elkhorn, for instance. I do, that's my home base. That's my home campus. So Racine and Kenosha, I'm not sure. I know Kenosha is offering some face-to-face and hybrid classes for A&P. So if you live closer to Kenosha and you want to get in there and look at models or whatever, let me know. I can try to make arrangements. But for Elkhorn, if you want to go to the Elkhorn campus and look at models, especially as we get toward bones and we get into muscles and organs, I mean, you know, there's some great stuff that's just sitting collecting dust, unfortunately. So I can make arrangements with Patty and Sue over in Elkhorn, and if you want to go over there and start, you know, as we move forward and look at some stuff, we'll figure something out. So I don't want you to think that the face-to-face, you're getting gypped out of the face-to-face. We kind of are, but you know, that part especially, we can try and do something. I mean, we can get you access. So don't think that reaching out for tutoring is only for folks who are struggling, because some of you excel at this stuff but you still don't feel fulfilled because you're not getting that hands-on. That still means you need something from me, and you need something from the one of the campuses, and so let me know. We'll make arrangements. We'll figure something out. So, so anyway, and then lastly, and then we'll move on with life. The portfolios, the last the questions about the membranes that can kind of trip students up a little bit. Basically what we're looking at is the diaphragm is a complete front to back, side to side dividing wall. It's a wall of muscle that's an inch or more thick, and it does have, you know, a passageway down the center for your esophagus to go down into your stomach, and so, you know, there's obviously we have to get blood down to your lower body and blood back up. So there are you know, there are holes that are in there that are filled with vessels and tubes, but for the most part, that diaphragm is a wall between the thoracic and abdominal cavities. So if we're getting fluid from the abdomen in a chest tube, that's bad. That's a really, or it's not abdominal fluid, but which may be the case here. But the diaphragm would have to be punctured for that to be going on, and that now we've got bigger problems. So and then the membranes, the last one is the organ damage. Is she correct with well, I mean, it's sort of. You know, when we look at membranes, the serous membrane, serous just has to do with there's some sort of a serum. You've all heard of that word. And a serum is like kind of a viscous or very thin fluid that helps with uh, preventing friction buildup or heat buildup. Like the heart is constantly beating every second of the day. So we have a nice double layered kind of a membrane, double layered membrane with a little cavity or space between the membranes where it's going to be fluid filled with some sort of a serous fluid. We call it a cavity. And so there's fluid in there that's going to help kind of with some of that friction and keeping some of that inflammation down potentially. So anyway, when we see the word viscera and we see the word parietal, viscera means organ or guts. Okay, visceral layer means it's the layer right up against the organ. So you have, for instance, the heart, you're going to have a layer of tissue, a membrane that's snug right up against the heart. or the lung or the abdominal organs. Okay. So visceral pericardium, visceral pleura, visceral peritoneum, visceral anything, visceral membrane means it's basically glued to the organ. So if I have damage to the visceral layer, the visceral membrane, I'm going to have damage to the organ. If there's no damage to the visceral membrane, there could be damage to the organ, but likely not. They're kind of part and parcel, I guess is what I'm saying. The serous membrane is more kind of over the top a little bit. So you've got viscerals right against it. Parietal is going to be right over top. So the parietal is more superficial, we would say. So this parietal serous membrane is more superficial than the visceral membrane. So you could have damage to the serous, the parietal membrane, and not have damage to the organ. Be like maybe like the brain and spinal cord have these layers too. So maybe like a first degree concussion, maybe the brain almost makes contact with the skull, but maybe that parietal, we call it the pia mater. In the brain, they're called mater. They're called meninges. But yeah, you could have an outer layer get bruised or damaged or affected, but may not necessarily the organ. So anyway, I hope that kind of clears things up. Remember, week 1 was a lot of intro stuff, a lot of new terminology bouncing around in your heads. You're not ever going to get away from it. So we're going to see these terms throughout the semester. We're going to see these ideas throughout the semester. We're going to put these puzzle pieces together. So if some of the stuff from week 1 was like, whoa, like I did it, I filled out the form and I use my notes and my book and my brain, but I'm still not 100% sure I really know what's going on. Well, that's good. If you really 100% know what's going on, you probably have maybe been here before, or you've had A&P. So most of you have not. That was the other common theme. A lot of you have never had any anatomy physiology experience. You've never had med term. You maybe took a biology class at some point in high school. Some of you have been out of school for quite a while, and you took med term or A&P, but it's been 10 or 15 years ago. So you guys are all coming from a different framework and a different foundation of science and of A&P. So anyhow, hang in there, all of you. This is a process that we're toward the end of week 2. You're getting introduced, and you'll continue to see a lot of this terminology. So anyhow, I don't want to belabor the point, but if any of you, again, have questions, have issues, just let me know, and I'll guide you as best as I can. So let's talk about any questions about week 1. I'm going to move on from the administrative-y stuff with week 1. Like I say, what's been turned in up to 8:30 last night has been graded. You still have the opportunity, by all means, to put things in the Dropbox, to take the exam, and now you have another exam, extra credit exam you can do. Again, check your Padlets, make sure you're putting your names somewhere in there, because again, not a bad group. You guys are about, I think about 38 or so Padlet entry students. So only 3 that don't have a name attached to them. So that's good. So as we move forward, that'll clear itself up pretty good. All right, so you guys ready to move on then? Let's get into, we did our chemistry intro. The exam is in there and available for you to take. Okay. And checked it twice, maybe even 3 times, and it's from a pool of about 55 or 60 questions. That's about it. So you're going to have 40 questions from a pool of around 55 questions. And again, it's everything we talked about on Tuesday. A few things that I maybe mentioned, didn't go into a lot of detail. You want to refer to the chapter outline that I have in here. Okay, the outline for chapter 2, that will help you with some of the questions, but they're pretty straightforward. You shouldn't have any images. There should just be straight multiple choice questions. There may be one that you might get with an image. So a lot more straightforward moving forward with those. So anyway, let's look at that hyperthermia case study for a few minutes. If you haven't had a chance to look at this, you can pull it up on yours, or you can certainly view it here. I'm not going to read through the whole thing, but I am going to highlight a couple of things that maybe would be beneficial for you to know. So first of all, July in Houston. So by the way, the E is the degree symbol. So anyway, high temperature above 100 degrees Fahrenheit is what that means. So okay, hot. Houston gets hot if you've never been down there. So anyway, she's running errands, she's housekeeping, she's busy. And yeah, some problems going on at the mom's house. Okay, so Janice running errands, 84-year-old mom, Marion, in pretty good health. So Janice is assuming she's going to get over, just check in on mom, make sure everything's on the up and up. No air conditioner. We see this even, I don't know how in the heck you'd get away with not having an air conditioner in Houston, but we do see this up here. Especially older folks, sometimes they never had air conditioning when they were kids. They don't want it now. It's a convenience. So that can be a problem, certainly. So windows were closed. Marion's a little bit nuts. She's gone a little delirious, which is good. At least she's not completely out. So but yeah, we need to get her help. She's experiencing some issues, to say the least. So the 911 says you need some cold washcloths, get her in front of a fan. Okay. Paramedics get there. Okay. Heat stroke, which is a form of hyperthermia. If you look up hyperthermia, you'll see that there are different types of hyperthermia. The body is overheating, is what that means. And we see this sometimes with pharmaceutical drug interactions can cause hyperthermia. Anesthesia, sometimes hospital in surgery, we have to keep our eyes on the patient's vitals, of course, and body temperature being one of them, because again, some patients respond to different levels and different types of anesthesia differently. One of the responses sometimes is a hyperthermic condition. So, and it can certainly be deadly. So anyway, she had a little bit of a heat stroke. She's all signs and systems seem to be on go. So yeah, good. Thank you for Janice for checking on her mom and making sure everything's on the up and up. Giving fluids, electrolytes intravenously, and so on and so on. So again, read through that on your own too, and you can kind of glean some tidbits in there, and then we give you a little bit more of a background of what hyperthermia is, what heat exhaustion is, and that. So from this, we can potentially answer some of these questions. So remember, homeostasis, one of the primary features of homeostasis is maintenance of body temperature. So our organs operate in a very strict range of body temperature. And if they get outside of that range for too long, then we certainly can have organ failure and death. So the body can respond in different ways to external heat. So this is a situation with Marion that we have external environmental heat affecting her. So this isn't a case of a pharmaceutical or drug issue. This isn't a surgical issue. This is simply a temperature issue. So the body is heating up. Generally, heat is going to move from high temperature to low temperature. So keep that in mind. Heat moves from a higher temperature area to a lower temperature area. This concept is called radiation. That doesn't mean nuclear radiation. It's not a bad thing. About 70% or more of heat that's lost in your body is lost due to the simple fact that outside of the body is cooler than inside of the body. What's it in here? Well, 98 point, we'll say it's around 100. So it's around 100 degrees in your body. It's rarely higher than that outside of your body. So our bodies are able to release heat without any issues under normal circumstances. What if we flip the script and now it's 104 outside of my body and it's 100 in here? I'm going to start taking on that heat. Okay, so I can no longer radiate heat. I'm now taking on the heat. So that's what happened with Marion, is that the temperature outside of her body, so the temperature in her house, because she didn't have air conditioning, spiked. And it doesn't matter. She could open the windows. It wouldn't have mattered if you've got 100. If it's 102 outside and it's maybe higher inside, you open the windows, it's still 100, 102. A fan is going to circulate warm air. So yeah. Anyway, Marion got in trouble a little bit with her body temperature. So she took on that excess heat. So what's she going to do? People survive in 100 degree. You and I do. We all do. Elderly people, as one of the questions, they have a little more problem, and we'll look at that in a few minutes. But why is, we can go work outside and play outside and do whatever outside, even if it's 100 degrees. But one thing you're going to do that your body does is it's going to sweat. Sweating is the other way that you're going to release heat. Okay. So your body will sweat profusely to try and get rid of that heat. And most of the composition of sweat is going to be water, of course. And we saw the other day, Tuesday, in chemistry, water has the ability to evaporate and take heat with it. So part of that sweating is to it gets water onto the skin, and then the sweat evaporates off and takes some of that heat with. Now, that's, again, called evaporative cooling. This is also why, so she wasn't able to do any of those. She wasn't sweating very much. I mean, she might have been, but not enough to balance what was going on. One of the reasons, we'll kind of jump down to two. I think number one, you can define homeostasis. What is homeostasis? It's the body's ability to maintain some sort of balance, right? So an internal balance, working with all factors, external environmental factors, internal environmental factors, the body's innate, born-in automatic ability to maintain balance. Okay. How does it relate to hyperthermia? Again, we want it. So the set point for us is 98.6 degrees. Okay. So that's what our thermostat is set at. So the receptor part, so the skin, what we call these cutaneous receptors. So one of the terms you may have seen last week, maybe not, you'll move, as we move forward, you'll see it more. Cutaneous, like the word cuticle, has to do with skin. So she has, we all have cutaneous temperature or thermoceptors. Okay? Basically, we have little receptors that are part of our nervous system within the skin that are going to enable us to receive temperature information. Okay, so receptors, these are cutaneous or skin thermoceptors, and that temperature information is going to get delivered up to the brain via what we call the sensory pathway. Okay, so we're going to deliver the sensory message. The stimulus, remember, stimulus is going to come in, it's going to go to the control center of the brain. Specifically for temperature, is going to be in the hypothalamus. Now, again, we haven't done much with the brain. Some of you have experienced, some of you, a lot of you for your favorite system said nervous system. Least favorite system, oddly enough, was digestive. Several of you said digestive. Some of you said endocrine and lymphatic. I go along with those. Or when I was a student, I didn't care for endocrine or lymphatic either. Those were heavy lifting for me. But anyhow, I understand digestion though. Oh man, I can't wait to get there. I want to make those of you who digestion's your least favorite. I'm challenged now to make it your most favorite. Most favorite. That's redundant. Your favorite. All right, or at least toward the top. Digestion's awesome. So anyway, cutaneous receptors. Yep, coming in. We go to the hypothalamus of the brain. That's the control center for temperature. Okay. For Marion, we've got an alert going on, right? So alert comes in, it's 99, it's 100, it's 102, whatever it is. So the control center receives that information. We have to turn the air conditioning on. Okay, so that kind of goes with number 5 too. 1 and 5, you can kind of relate together. This is that negative feedback. The thermostat is set at a certain temperature. We send in the signal. We get that signal that boom, temperature has gone up. So the thermostat's going to kick in and send a signal out to our air conditioning unit at home if we want the air to turn on. For our bodies, the effectors are going to be like sweat glands. Remember, an effector is a muscle or a gland. So for hyperthermia and for any type of temperature regulation, you're going to see the effector or the respondor being sweat glands. Okay. The opposite, like hypothermia, so cold weather, we shiver, right? So the effector, so again, same principle, the brain gets the signal, the hypothalamus, that it's really cold. And we're going to send a signal, an effector that's going to cause shivering. So we're going to go after, as well as you might get goosebumps, you might get the hair standing on end. So that's another effector that has to do with raising the hairs. And those hairs that raise up, they can draw in more heat potentially that might be available. So anyhow, hyperthermia. Set point 98.6. The receptors are picking up that we're above 98.6. Cutaneous thermoceptors. They send the signal to the control center, which is the hypothalamus of the brain for temperature. And then we get a response sent out via that motor pathway that's going to cause an effect to happen with, for this, sweat glands. Okay. There are other effectors too, adrenal glands, pancreas. We might get some blood sugar, blood glucose needs. Some insulin levels are going to start going up. We're going to start pulling stored glucose, because now what's going on? She's in a stress mode. As soon as that set point is we've gone over or way under the set point, and the control center has the message, that's going to trigger a whole bunch of other items to occur too. We're going to get blood pressure changes. We're going to get heart rate changes. We're going to get some other effectors occurring. But for this particular one, if we stick to just the temperature aspects and what the body does in response to temperature and in those respects, with the cutaneous aspects, that's really more what I'm looking for number one. You can go further if you'd like. Number two, elderly. So she's at greater risk. Or Marion, we know she's old. She's in her 80s, I believe it said. So she's 84. Oh, she's young. Okay, but still, she's got poor circulation. Why would they have a greater risk of suffering heat exhaustion or heat stroke? Why do you think elderly individuals? One reason, a big one, and I kind of mentioned this the other day when we were discussing water and hydration importance. Elderly folks are dehydrated. Their organs and tissues, they're just not as full of water, full of vitality, full of life. So one thing the body will do under a heat problem is, of course, sweat. So what is sweat? Remember, is water. Well, grandma, because she's already systemically dehydrated, she maybe doesn't have as much water to lose, nor do we want her to. There's a certain amount you have to keep, right? The friction that's created by the heart contracting, we're surrounding it with fluid. So if we, and the lungs, as they expand and contract, lungs are covered in tissue with that has those fluid spaces. So we need, the brain definitely requires water, and it's floating. So if we start sweating as an elderly person who doesn't really have much water to lose to begin with, that can be a serious problem. So they will sweat because that's what they normally do, but they may be taking water from other areas that again are going to cause the heat that's going on from the heart rate going up. Because remember, she's experiencing stress, so heart rate's going up, blood pressure's going up, so there's more friction going on all of a sudden inside of the body. So the internal organs need hydration as well, but we also need to be able to get some of that heat that's built up, because remember, it doesn't radiate off of us if we're over 100 degrees outside. So we have to sweat out all of that heat somehow through number three, evaporative cooling. Why does spraying water on the skin lower the body temperature? Because we're helping grandma with, instead of her having to use her own sweat, which she doesn't maybe have much to begin with, so there's not a lot of droplets on her to pull to pull that heat off as the water droplets evaporate. They're taking heat with it. So if we can spray some water on grandma, that water is going to cover the skin, it's going to get into droplets, and then it's going to evaporate, and it's going to take some of that heat with it. And if we put a fan there too, now we're really speeding up this process. Now we don't want to blast her with, you don't want to, stick her in a vat of ice and in an air conditioned room. You don't want to shock the body, that especially elder. So we start, let's spray her down with some water a little bit. Let's cool water. Let's get her a drink of water. Let's rehydrate her as much as we can that way. Get a little fan blowing, get some circulation. So get her into a cooler environment. And then maybe get an IV in her, because she's losing some things that get lost in sweat too. Some of that sodium is going to get lost in sweat, and sodium, we'll see later, is extremely important for homeostasis and keeping fluids balanced, keeping the kidneys in order. So anyhow, evaporative cooling, water droplets evaporate and they take heat with them as they evaporate. That's why we're going to spritz some water on someone who's having some serious heat problems. Washcloths too. The problem with those, you don't want to lay a cool washcloth on them. You can dab it, but we really want, because we're covering up the skin, so the skin can't can't evaporate as well. If we take a washcloth, unfolded, cold water, put it on the face, take it off, put it on the arms, take it off, and keep it moving, that allows those droplets to pull the heat off. So we don't want to necessarily suffocate them either. Let's see. Number 4, that goes right back to what we talked about the other day, with water composes 65 or 2/3 of the body is made of water. It has that high heat before it'll start boiling over. It's got the ability to go through evaporative cooling. It's a great solvent for all of these nutrients that we're consuming. I mean, the list goes on. So hydration, our blood plasma is 55. Our blood plasma is actually almost 100% water, but our blood is about 55% plasma. So over half of your blood is made of water. Every single one of these fluid-filled membranes, fluid-filled cavities between membranes, all of these body cavities we looked at are, all of these organs in these cavities are immersed and floating in water. So water is extremely important on a million different levels. So you have several, again, if you go back to the outline for this week, there's some in there. The PowerPoint from the other day has those as well. Well, the other thing too, number 2, I think you guys can come up with more than just old people are dehydrated. There's a lot more than that. Poor circuit, they're oftentimes on a lot of medications too, right? They're going to be on usually blood thinners. They're going to be on cholesterol drugs. Older folks have a more sedentary lifestyle. I mean, number 2, we could have a laundry list of reasons why elderly people with poor circulation have a greater risk of heat stroke. Poor circulation tells me right away I've got a weak heart. I've got potentially sludgy, thick blood. So the patient's on blood thinners. They have a sedentary lifestyle. They may even have microclots in their legs. I mean, so anyhow, chemical imbalances, what we call metabolic disorders, more often with old people, type 2 diabetes, obesity. So anyway, there's a lot of reasons why elderly folks, especially if they have poor circulation, are more susceptible to these temperature issues. Okay, and then number 5, temperature regulation, similar to temperature regulation in the home with a thermostat. Okay, and again, you can go back to your PowerPoint slides. There's a whole slide that shows an image of how a thermostat relates to. Let me see if I can pull it up. So yeah, refer back to that. I mentioned it a few minutes ago as well. That thermostat is set at a certain temperature, and when the external temperature comes in, and it is, again, if it's summer and the temperature gets above what it's supposed to, this one right here. Okay. This will explain some of the feedback loop processes. That slide basically goes with number 5. Okay. Any questions? Again, I don't want to give away too much. I want you guys to have to do some of the grunt work for that particular case study. And again, if you go to this slide in the PowerPoint, not in PDF version, notice I can't see the underneath. It's got information on the bottom here. Okay, that kind of goes with this. All right. Page, the slide is under weekly slides. And it'll pull this up. Click that, and it'll pull it up to look like this. And you want to open it with Google Slides, and it's slide number 8. Oh, what page in the book? Oh, this is from a different book, so don't tell anybody though. All right, so anyway. Oh, shoot, we're recorded. I'm going to have to edit that out. Darn it. Oh, well. So, all right, well, cool. All right, Hope, good. And again, you can see some of that info. And your textbook, your OpenStax talks a little bit about homeostasis, certainly. It talks about temperature control. That's about it for that. Okay, weekly units. Let's go back into unit 2. And so again, if you haven't looked at the Padlet yet for Chem or for week 2, hey, all right, Thomas, Brittany, Valentina, awesome, Jolie, so excellent. No rest for the wicked, right? We just go. So I'll like I said last week, the Padlets I generally do all at once for the grading. So a couple of you emailed at me and asked me, you saw your other grades in, but we're wondering why the Padlets weren't in. Typically, Wednesdays and Thursdays are my big days. One or the other of those days will be Padlets. So this morning I had some extra time to do them, so I did them. So anyway, probably next Thursday, I'll enter in all of those Padlets. So then I'm not going back and forth too much, because there are 50 of you I got to keep track of. And unfortunately, Padlet doesn't link up with Blackboard. So I go in and I read through and then put a little check in my own notes. Then I go into the grade book. Anyway, trade secrets. Shouldn't be sharing those with you guys either. Plus, you don't need to know any of that stuff. But yeah, watch these videos. They're excellent. Some of you mentioned in week 1 you like the Amoeba Sisters. They're tremendous. And of course, the Crash Course guy is also great. So, but anyway, watch a couple of these. They're very short, as you guys know. And just because you watched one and moved on, and doesn't mean you can't go back to it and watch some of the other ones if you need to. All right, so that takes care of engage, comprehend, and now practice. You've got your portfolio, and again, I trimmed out there was some superfluous stuff in here that you didn't really need to deal with. So I trimmed out a few things last week before I put this in for you. So you're going to see a little less heavy amount of definitions maybe than you saw last week. But generally the portfolio sticks pretty closely with what we did on Tuesday with the key terms and the outline, as well as that OpenStax text. So again, your definitions are great. Many of you typed, some of you printed off, wrote them in, took pictures. It doesn't matter to me, however works best for you. If you found that the way you did week 1's assignment was too much, then print it off or type it. There are many ways to do these. You can remember too, when you open it into Google Docs, you just have to click File, make a copy. You can even type your name in the end there if you want, and start typing in if you'd like. And this is your copy, and then you can share it to me. A couple of you did that. Remember, I don't know if it was Eduardo or Ricardo. One of you guys, and I sent you an email. You have to make sure you share it with me. If you just copy the link and send me the link, or put the link in Blackboard in the Dropbox, and I go to open it, I have to ask for permission. So, which is fine. I just, just give me permission once you get the email. So anyway, those are many ways to do things. So definitions for those, functions of water in the body, 3 types of carbs, 3 types of fats, 3 types of proteins. What are some minerals? What are some amino acids? There are 20 different amino acids. Just list 6 of them. Again, I just want you to start kind of getting your feet wet with the type of chemistry that we use in A&P and that you'll use more or less in a clinical setting. Which is those big 3: carbs, proteins, and lipids, and then everything that kind of associates with them. So like, glucose for sugars or carbs, fructose, lactose. You can even put, bread, pasta, and an apple. I prefer that you can give those as examples, but I'd like you to also put maybe like glucose, fructose, lactose, galactose. Whoa, bless you. You scared me. Well, you didn't scare me. You startled me. I'm in the zone.
No,
Yeah.
I you did. But thank you.
So, all right. Let's see. And you just define more, a couple definitions. What's an ionic bond? What's a covalent bond? What's a hydrogen bond? Okay. Why do we need in a minimum of 3? This when that's in there, I'm not picky. You don't even, you could put bullets, 3 little bullets of why oxygen is good, carbon dioxide, or what oxygen does and what carbon dioxide does. Those are in the slides. Same with enzymes. Why do we need enzymes? And again, in your slides or in your course outline, all this information's there. Apply what you've learned. Again, more info on some stuff that we've talked about. Remember, a macro molecule is just a larger molecule. So if I combine a lipid and a protein, it's simply called a lipoprotein. One word, lipoprotein. Okay. A carb and a lipid could be called a glycolipid. Well, looking ahead to next week. So there are a couple questions here I threw in that kind of look ahead a little bit to what we're going to do with cells. If you're struggling with these, or if you just, you don't want to do them or whatever, let me know. I'll help you with them, or we can go through these together on Tuesday, first thing. So, because these, like I say, they kind of get into what we're going to do next week. So I know these are due on Monday night into Tuesday. So again, if you don't want to do them, or you can't do them, you can't find them, these are, I'm not going to say they're extra credit. They're simply looking ahead into next week. So now that you've finished and gotten through the portfolio and the case study and all of that, I just want you to start thinking about maybe looking a little bit at some of the cell stuff, because these have some of the terms, right? We see sugar, we see transport protein, okay, cell membrane, immune system. So these could just be educated guesses, or you could just type in, I really don't know. And that's why I'm looking forward to next week so I can answer these. So anyway, that's just kind of like teaser trailers for next week. And if you want to kind of dig a little deeper and go forward, by all means do so. And then this last section is kind of clinical oriented stuff, because all of you are going into and entering into a clinical setting with A&P. So I've got 4 of the big dogs here. We've got sodium, calcium, potassium, and chloride. Those are the four elements, and in their ionic form, in their compound form, and they're together. These are the 4 that we really look at when and are very easy to look at on a diagnostic level at the clinic. Okay, I could take a blood draw and find this information without trouble, I could do urinalysis and see what the urine is levels are with these. If we're, that could tell me about the pH. So really all I want you to do is you're going to look these up. So you're going to go a little bit further. You're not going to find these necessary. You might find this info in your text or in your slides. Maybe you already know, or maybe you have an idea. But if you just Google role of sodium in the human body, you'll find it. Role of calcium in the body. And you all of you know, right? You've heard at some point calcium builds bone, right? Milk and all that good stuff. So that's fine, right? Builds strong bones. There's more to it. So see if you could find more about why you need calcium than just building bones. Why do we need it in the bones? Well, the bones basically become a storage unit for calcium because we need it for other important things, such as muscle contraction. Okay, potassium, what role? And then chloride, what role does it have? And then under each of these, you're going to see a clinical condition or pathology term. Hypo and hyper. Those are two prefixes that we see quite a bit when we analyze human anatomy and physiology, and certainly when we look at some of the pathologies that might be involved. So hypo means below. I don't have enough of something. Hyper means I have too much or an excess. So whenever you see hypo, whatever it's describing, it just means under, not enough, okay, deficient in. Hyper is the opposite. Hyper means I have too much, I'm in excess of. Okay? Hypo versus hyper. So those are the first things we notice with all of these. Now, natremia. Well, let's look at all of these. I think I can get them all on the screen, or at least close to it. Close enough. We do see emia, 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 emia. So we've got a suffix too. So as we break down, again, some of you have had med term, some of you are in med term, some of you have never had it and maybe never will. So this may be your only exposure really to understanding medical terminology. And it's extremely important to understand medical terminology. It'll make your life so much easier when it comes to learning A&P, when it comes to learning pharmacology, when it comes to doing pathophysiology, when it comes to working in the clinic. Med term, I can't emphasize it. Even if you can't take it through Gateway, if you can take a med term online, just kind of a self-paced thing, if you can get yourselves into a med term course, even a short, like 8-week thing, I'm telling you, it'll be extremely beneficial. And it is a lot of work. It's a lot of busy work. It's a lot of memorization, but those of you who've had it know what I'm talking about. So anyway, or who are taking it now. Emius at the end. So we have three things going on. We've got a prefix, and then we've also got a suffix. Okay. In the middle, we have what we call a root or combining form of the root. We've got emia at the end, simply means some sort of a condition, a blood condition, typically. So I've got below whatever I'm describing, blood condition. Okay. Natrio or N-A-T-R, natria or natrio, natrium, that means sodium. In fact, you guys remember the chemical symbol for sodium is Na. You maybe wondered why is the chemical symbol, the letters for sodium, Na? Well, because in German, sodium is natrium. So NAT. So if you see hyponatremia, hypernatremia, that means I have a condition of the blood with not enough sodium. Okay. Hyponatremia, not enough sodium in the blood. What's the consequence of that? So just type in hyponatremia. You can just copy and paste hyponatremia right into the Google machine, and it'll tell you what you need to know. Hypernatremia, excess, too much sodium in the blood. Okay, and the others go right down the line. Hypocalcemia, not enough calcium in the blood. Hypercalcemia, too much calcium in the blood. Kalemia, K. There's that. Why is potassium a K? Again, we've got the K in here for kalo or kaleo for means potassium. So hypokalemia, not enough potassium in the blood. Hyper, too much potassium in the blood. Chloride or Cl, hypochloremia. I don't know what happened there. There we go. Not enough chloride ion in the blood. Too much hyperchloremia. So anyway, just research those a little bit. Level 5, you don't have to do. There's nothing with level 5. You already did it. Your patient scenario is the hyperthermia. Typically, level 5 is going to be some sort of kind of patient scenario or case study. This week, there was a different patient scenario in here. I removed that. The one I gave you is one I use occasionally in advanced A&P. So anyway, that's it. Pretty smooth sailing this week, I think, for you. I don't have much else to go through or discuss. So again, just a quick nutshell. Week 1, everything's graded for the most part. If you've done your Padlet for week 1 and you don't see a grade in there, please let me know, or go back into Padlet first before you see that there's no grade in Padlet, and you email me right away if you see there's no grade in Padlet. And by the way, I don't put zeros in grades. I leave them blank. So if you haven't done something, haven't turned something in, then it'll just be blank. It won't be a 0. I don't put zeros in until the very last day of the semester, on December 10th. So really, I put them in on the 11th because you have until midnight on December 10th to get everything done. So come the 11th, if everything's closed down, then I put zeros in where there are blanks. So anyway, if you have a blank where Padlet is, go back to Padlet, make sure you're in there. If you may not see your name, you may see anonymous, either fix that or send me an email and let me know so I can enter the grade in. Get your lab 1 and portfolio 1 in if you haven't already. Those are caught up for the most part, unless you handed it in after 8:30 p.m. last night. Same with exam 1. We talked about exam 1 being a little bit sketchy, so we remedied that. So you have an extra credit one you can do. And log those extra credits while you can, because I don't typically offer much in the way of extra credit. When it gets closer to Halloween, there'll be another extra credit item that I'll put in for you to do as well. So anyway, that's it for week 1 stuff. We're moving on. Week 2, we're already done with week 2 as far as meetings go. So you're going to want to go back through the slideshow or watch the videos. Again, the videos are going to be always over here in the Zoom class sessions tab, and you'll find the 2 folders for last week and this week. Hey, go to week 2, and both the morning and evening sessions are in there. So this afternoon I'll put our session in there, so that'll be available to you as well. So anyway, work on your Padlet for week 2. Work on your case study. And again, if you were taking notes, or if you were, whatever you were doing during the video today, if you need to, like I say, you can go back and watch. It usually takes, right after we're done here, it takes sometimes up to an hour for the video to upload, and then for me to be able to put it into YouTube. And from there, it can take up to another hour. Sometimes it's quick, sometimes it's not. So we're relying on Zoom into Blackboard, into YouTube, back into Blackboard. So it's a lot of bouncing. So sometimes it's slick. It takes an hour total for them to upload. Sometimes can take a couple of hours. So be patient with that. But yeah, if you need to rewatch this video, what we went through, that again, you'll be able to do your hyperthermia case study from that. Same with the portfolio, go through that, and then boom, exam 2 will be a lot of the questions and items that we looked at on Tuesday, and items we've done today. You're going to want to use your whatever you need to. Like I say, you put them in the Google machine and see what happens. Some of the questions you'll see come from Quizlet as well. And then again, you can go through and review chapter 2 and in OpenStax, and that will certainly help as well. So that's it. 12:50. It's almost 1 o'clock. We did great. Next week we're going to get into exam 3, that too. But week 3, we're going to get into cells and a little bit with cell function, just a little. We're mainly going to look at the different structures of cells, and we'll talk a little bit about and look a little bit at what they do and why we have them. And some of it's going to relate back to what we did this week. So when we look at a ribosome and we look at a rough endoplasmic reticulum, we're going to be discussing protein synthesis. We're going to talk about proteins, synthesis, a chemical reaction, remember, of building something. Okay. We'll look at mitochondria, and we'll talk about carbohydrates and cellular respiration. Oxygen in, carbon dioxide out. Okay, so everything you're doing, you will see it over and over and over again. So again, establish a good foundation now. If there are a few things you're a little bit unsure of, let me know, or just hold tight, and we'll fill in those blanks and those spaces. And like I said last week, by December 10th, you're going to be blown away at everything that your big brains have been able to absorb and take on and move forward into the next level. Because yeah, you guys are all doing great. I'll say in all of my no visible body this week. Nope. Yay, maybe. We'll do some next week, though. You get a week off from visible body. Next week. From here on out, though, it's going to be visible body every week. Yep. Okay. Be some cell stuff in visible body. And then tissues, and then all of our organ systems. So yeah, on Thursdays, more will be back on the visible body train. Yeah. So in the meantime, if you get done with chapter 2 and you're ready, I'll have week 3 stuff out. Hopefully by Saturday. So you're welcome, May. Okay. Yep. Saturday or Sunday, week 3 should be open. If you want to look ahead, you're welcome, Elena. You're welcome, all of you. Have a good weekend. I'll quit babbling, but anyway, week 3 next week, that stuff will start being in there. And again, if you want to work ahead, you can look at some of the visible body stuff, or just go back into visible body and stay fresh with that. Like I say, Tuesday we're going to look at chapter 3, talk about cells. Thursday, we'll go back into visible body a little bit, discuss a few things, and then that's it. And then move on with tissues and skin, week 4, and then bones, and I mean it just keeps going. So yep, I appreciate all of your guys' hard work. And I'm not gaslighting you when I say this, but this holds true for especially my morning group. My night group is excellent too, but we've got 25. I now have 24 students, and the majority of you have done everything you need to do and have done it well. That's not usually the case. So I really appreciate that. You're a great group. and keep it up. I appreciate all of you come. You're a quiet group, which is fine. Well, you're not going to get a word in anyway with all the babbling I do. So, but anyhow, yeah, excellent group. I appreciate you coming every Tuesday and Thursday. I hope you find these meetings and this helpful. So, and if not, tell me what I can do better and I'll do it. All right. So anyway, that's it. Have a great weekend, you guys. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. And if you guys have any questions, let me know.